Welcome to Conversations. I'm Suresh Kochatu. The death of Yahya Sinwar last week has sparked off a succession battle in Hamas. But more than that, it has sparked off speculation as to whether Hamas is finished. Of course, there is Hezbollah still to be dealt with, and Houthis have been dealt with by the US. Overall, West Asia looks like a picture of confusion right now. Nobody knows which way the battle is going. Despite being down and out, the Hezbollah is still using its drones to hit Israel. And some of them have got through even close to Benjamin Netanyahu's home. But more importantly, one needs to realize as to how the technology of today's war is being fought. And we all know that. How Houthis are firing at the ships, what happens when Hezbollah fires its missiles, and we saw what Iran did when it fired its ballistic missile all the way from Tehran. But the main factor that we should all understand is the determination of the Israeli government. How far will it go, especially when it's being held back by the US administration, which is on its last legs. In fact, many observers say, political observers say, that what Israel did is something that should have been done by the United States, but they never did it. Israel single-handedly, over the last 1 month, have completely decimated Hezbollah, Hamas, and of course, trying to take on Iran with a strike that being speculated about. It did not help that the leakage of very sensitive documents from the US government on Telegram app has actually shown which way the battle will go. It may be a decoy for all you know. Israel may say one thing and do another thing, and that's for sure in a battle of deception. But the question everybody is asking, and even Benjamin Netanyahu himself said this, that the war is not over yet. This is the beginning of the end, he said, after Yahya Sinwar was assassinated or killed, or whatever you want to call it. Because the main thing that is there is that terrorist groups, despite the loss of its leaders, will still get up and fight. Israel also knows that it has over 95 hostages still there in somewhere in Gaza, and it has to get them back because the public opinion in Israel is very strong. And we saw that on the day when Yahya Sinwar was killed. Israelis want them back, the hostages, at any cost. And the Israeli government knows that it can push the envelope only so far. Definitely, Benjamin Netanyahu is caught between a rock and a hard place, because the US elections is already started, voting has started in many places. But more importantly, neither Kamala Harris nor Joe Biden showing any interest in the war. In fact, if you remember, all the way Kamala Harris was telling, and even Joe Biden was saying, that Israel should not enter Rafah. And Yahya Sinwar was killed in Rafah. Imagine if Israel had heard out US, which means that US was trying to protect Yahya Sinwar indirectly. Why? Why is US asking Israel not to go into Lebanon? It would not have killed what we know, the kind of killing that is going around there, kind of getting all the leaders out. And that is most important, because Israel cares a damn for anybody's opinion. And we saw that in many cases. Israel knows what it wants and it will do. The question we need to ask is what next? As I said, the attack on Iran will happen, but how will it happen? What will be hit? Will the strategic reserves be hit? Will the nuclear assets be taken out? Or will the oil tankers and the oil fields be hit? It can all go anywhere. In the meantime, of course, there is a kind of new leadership coming up within Hamas. And that is sort of expected, because all the leaders, the major leaders, are sitting in Qatar, which everybody knows is a fountainhead of terrorism. Ironically, one of the most friendly nations with Qatar is the United States. When it knows that the Hamas leaders are sitting right there in Qatar, why is it that the US is not demanding that they be thrown out of the country? US has an Air Force base in Qatar. If it wants, it can do it in no time. In fact, US has assured Qatar that there will never be an attack on them. On the other hand, we have Saudi Arabia, which we all know hates the Iranian regime, which we again is the kind of sponsor of the three H's, the Hezbollah, Hamas and Houthis. We need to take them out. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu says. But then he's fighting a lonely battle. The people of Israel are fighting a lonely battle. And that's a sad fact. Very few nations are willing to help them out. In fact, in places, many cities in India, there were kind of funeral mourners held out here. There were mourners who were mourning the death of a terrorist, Yahya Sinwar. I mean, think of it. I mean, Osama bin Laden, I mean, I don't know whether there are prayers for him also here. But here comes a kind of a double standards of the US. When US wants, it will take out any terrorist in any country. It went all the way to Abbottabad in Pakistan and killed Osama bin Laden. But when Israel wants to do it, they say, no, don't do it, don't do it. It's not correct. Even when India wants to take out Panun, who is a terrorist, designated terrorist, sitting in the US says, no, don't do it. We want the Indian officer to be extradited who wanted to kill him. But what about David Coleman Headley, who's sitting there in the US? What about the Kanishka bomber still sitting in Canada? This is the double standards. And Canadian Prime Minister, Australian Prime Minister, UK even cut out a missile kind of supply to the Iran, to the Israelis. That is a sad fact. And French President Macron calling, I don't know. Why is he calling for a ceasefire? Why is he cutting down on the arms embargo and putting up an embargo against Israel? And now he says he won't even invite Israel to a defense expo. Ridiculous. These same countries, I mark my words, UK, France, Germany, they will all face the same music, which is now being faced in many countries. UK is already having it. Won't be surprised if it turns an Islamic Republic in say 20 to 30 years. Because they are kind of rearing a terror group within the midst in the name of immigration and open borders. Sometimes I feel President Trump is right when he says, I'm going to close the border and throw out everybody. Whether he does it, whether he wins the election and does it is a different question. It's $1 million question. But at least he has expressed the intention to do so. Whereas we have a wishy-washy Kamala Harris, neither here nor there. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of thing that is happening in Israel today. Israel will look after itself. It has done so from the past, from the time it was formed. It got the independence around the same time that we got our independence. Israel built up a nation which was like a desert. They invested money. In fact, the land they're sitting on was purchased from the Arabs. If you go back to the history, it's a big history there. But then they worked on it. They're hardworking. The farming is one of the best. The water which they generate from the Sea of Galilee and supplying to even in Jordan. Imagine that Israel gives water to Jordan, drinking water. Whereas it's kind of a country which doesn't have very few parts of Israel get good rains. But then it does it. How does it do? It uses technology. But, ladies and gentlemen, we should think that we also are in a similar situation. We are surrounded by enemies as much as Israel is. But Israel is facing bigger amount of enemies. And they always had this, right from the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War and others. They fought knowing that they have no option. Their only option to survive is fight to survive. And that's what the Israelis do. That is how they train the army. That is how they got the intelligence like Mossad and Shin Bet. That is how they got the reservist. All of them dedicated because they know that if they don't fight, the nation will cease to exist. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand one important thing in this entire process. The technology that Israel has today is awesome. Be it the Iron Dome or other things that we have. And more importantly, that part of it, in terms of investing in incoming missiles to be tackled, be it David Sling and other things, as we spoke about in an earlier clip in one of these things in this channel, SA Media. That, ladies and gentlemen, is something that we all need to work on. Is that India also needs to have its Atmanirbhar. We need to have our own missile system. Of course, we have bought something from the Soviets, S-400s and all that. But we need to have our own Patriots. We need to have our own David Slings. We need to have our own Iron Dome. All that. And of course, why not collaborate with Israel? We are already doing it, but we're doing it silently. They helped us during Kargil. We have helped them during the recent fight. One of our ships was detained, on the way to Israel, but they were released later. We as a nation should understand that unless we stand and fight, nobody will respect you. That is the most important thing. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand that the fight that Israel is fighting is both on the diplomatic front and on the military front. And on the diplomatic front, they may have numerous issues, including resolutions passed by the United Nations and others. Israel cares a damn for them. In fact, it banned Antonio Guterres for even stepping into Israel. That's a great thing, actually. But the way Israel deals with itself, that so much so that even the diaspora, the Jews who are there in the US who control the media to a large extent, they are the real strength of Israel. Israelis, wherever they are, support their government. Unlike our opposition leaders in India, who decry the government of India even when they go after terrorists. We saw in the recent case when the Congress is crying about a raw officer saying that how can India do all this? India should actually tackle the terrorists who are fighting against our country wherever they may be. As Modi ji often says, ghar mein ghus ke marenge. That should be the philosophy. And I admire Israel for that. I have no reservations in saying this. They are a great nation. They know how to survive everywhere. Nature is against them. Their enemies are against them. Their friends are against them. And that is a sad fact. But Israel will survive. From Golda Meir to Benjamin Netanyahu, they have done that. And that's a great thing. Thank you for watching.